Earlier, we saw how we could branch a program into different directions using if and else statements. Now I'd like to talk about another way we can control program flow, the switch statement. Switch statements are very much like if statements, and they can be very useful, so let's take a look. First, let's declare an integer variable, and I'll call it difficulty. Let's say we're making a game, and we want to have 3 different difficulty levels for people to play at. Obviously, we're not going to build any games here, but we'll just output a line of text telling us which difficulty we've selected by using a switch statement. For now, I'll set difficulty to equal 1. To use a switch statement, just type switch, followed by parentheses, and then 2 curly braces. Inside the parentheses, we pass in the value that we use to determine which path we'll take, which is called the case. I'll pass the difficulty variable in here. Inside the braces, enter case 1, followed by a colon. Hit enter, and on the next line, I'll put console.writeLine. And I'll put easy. Now I'll go down a line and enter case 2. Below that, I'll copy and paste the WriteLine method, and I'll change easy to hard. I'll copy and paste case 2, change it to case 3, and change the WriteLine method to impossible. Before we actually run this code, there's one last thing we need to do. We have to use a break statement at the end of each case, which breaks us out of this block of code, out of the switch statement. Just type break, followed by a semicolon. If we run this, the console says easy, since that's the difficulty we selected. If we change difficulty to 2, we get hard. And if we change it to 3, the console says impossible. So what would happen if I change the difficulty to 4? There is no case 4, so what would the switch statement do? I'll set difficulty to 4 and run the program, and it outputs nothing. We can set a default case, which will only be run if the value passed in does not match any of the cases that we already have set up. On the next line, enter default, followed by a colon. We'll use WriteLine to say multiplayer. Follow it with a break statement. And now if we run the app, it says multiplayer. You don't have to use an integer to choose the case either. You could use a string. I'll change difficulty to be of a string data type and change it to the word 1. I just need to change the integers in each case to strings. 1, 2, 3. If I run the code, easy. Of course, this isn't the way we would program a game, with each mode in a separate case of a switch statement. This is just an example of a switch. I just used the game example to show you why you would be switching between certain cases. Also, you can see how similar this is to an if-else statement. Personally, I tend to use if and else if to do the same thing, but many people prefer to use switch statements, so I wanted to make sure we cover them before we move on.